Good morning, guys. Bon dia. Spring is kind of here, I feel, and this garden bed up by the house I've kind of let get really wild over the winter. Rather than have bare soil, I've just let the weeds grow, and it's time to tidy it up a bit. I want to try not to expose too much bare soil. I just want to kind of clear and tidy them up. I need to get Iwan to have a bit of a strim first, and then whilst I'm weeding and clearing this bed, I thought I would talk today about whether living off grid is stressful. This is from a comment we received a few videos ago asking if we lived a life free of stress, and I thought it would be quite an interesting topic to cover whilst I'm weeding the garden. So I'll let you unstring first and then we'll get on to that. So actually the first job before yarn strims is we want to move this tap. When we got the cabin plumbed in, we added in a tap here, and we've not yet dug in the black piping because I wanted to move this because it feels a bit random placed here. So I think we're just going to move it backwards. One thing we will need to do is add an extra bit of hose for the washing machine. It's looking much better here now, so I'm just going to go in and get everything that's dead and pull up any grass. But yeah, I wanted to address the question of whether we live a stress-free life, because we obviously share quite an idyllic version of life here. We feel extremely lucky to live this life that is probably in some ways less stressful than a city life. But unfortunately, it is not without stress. I don't think it's really possible to live a life without some sort of stresses. And it's kind of been on my mind to talk about this because we get a lot of comments saying that we've inspired people to come and do this, whether it's in Portugal or somewhere else. And I feel like a sense of, not obligation, but you know what I mean, like I should be giving you a more honest impression of what some of the challenges that we face are, so that you don't come along and do this and think it's just this beautiful, easy life, because sometimes, unfortunately, it's far from that, especially when you're trying to weed a garden and there's a Joao in it. Makes life very stressful. But there were kind of like 3 areas mainly that I think are specific to our lifestyle, whether that's living off-grid, having nearly 2 acres to look after, living in a different country and trying to do something we've not done before in our lives. Like, we're not farmers, so we've got so much to learn. We're not builders. Those 3 areas are probably, firstly, is the off-grid element. Is it takes a lot to get set up into a life here that feels comfortable. We've spent a lot of time living in discomfort, whether that's just being able to shower or having to shower in the cold, being too hot, not having a fridge for a couple of years. It takes a long time to build up from nothing, because we just bought this abandoned barn in the middle of a field, basically. It used to be a house a long time ago, but it never had the infrastructures that we're used to now. And the systems we've had to put in place, such as electricity, clean water. You can't just drink well water, or well, I know some people do, but we chose not to, so we had to learn how to filter that, and that's a whole system that you have to set up, and that whole system needs electricity, quite a lot of electricity. I think when I envisioned us first moving here, I just thought I would quickly build a little house and we only need a little bit of electricity, it'll be easy and simple to set up. That has not been the case. It takes a lot more than you think things are going to. Even just like being able to keep a fridge running on a solar system in the winter, just, yeah, is very, very challenging. And I think when you are reliant on yourself and your systems that you put in place, you have to really think extra about things. And for example, in the winter, we turn the fridge off overnight. You can leave a fridge off for around 7 hours as long as it's not opened. I'm going to try really hard not to ramble too much and actually make sense here. But yeah, it takes a long time to set those things up, especially if you don't have a big lump of sum of money, because it's also quite expensive, which is another point I'll cover. You have to learn to live without things, which can be uncomfortable. Some people live off-grid as kind of a lifestyle choice in and of itself, to take more control over their life, whereas for us it was just, we wanted to live somewhere as beautifully immersed in nature as we are here, and that involves being far away from electricity, water, sewage, gas, all the things that you need to live a comfortable modern life. We're not trying to be like back in the olden days and living a life that's not without those modern conveniences, because I think it's amazing what humans have developed, and they definitely make your life easier. If it rains for a week, we don't have electricity, which runs our fridge and our washing machine and our water pump. So then we can't shower, our food could go bad, and we can't get our drinking water, and we can't wash our clothes. I mean, imagine you had no electricity in your house, how difficult that would make everything. So balancing that and sometimes it just shutting off can be really stressful, and you have to be really prepared. You have to think of everything. Like in the winter, I always make sure we've got drinking water in the fridge, because I know sometimes in the morning we have no power to get drinking water. I think there are those things that most people don't really have to think about that can become a stress. But I think because we've taken such a long time to build up the systems, we A, have quite good levels of backup, and B, we've gotten really good at being uncomfortable. The second point that I kind of thought of that adds stress is knowledge gap. We've never farmed before. We didn't know how solar works. We didn't know how plumbing works. We didn't know how to get the well water clean. There's so much to learn, and it takes a long time to figure these things out. I think that can add an element of stress of not knowing and not having the time to learn everything. For example, when we got the water test back for the well, you know, it said it had this certain bacterium, but we don't know what that means. Or like with the solar setup, we have to learn with setting up the solar panels the correct voltage and amps and watts compared to what the power banks can handle. There's just so many things to learn about living off grid and building. You know, we've had to learn so much about building, and I think when you don't know things, you're more likely to make mistakes, which then is kind of stressful. For example, putting that roof on the kitchen was one of the first like big jobs we tackled. Luckily Nick helped us, but we hadn't thought about every element of it, and actually the room wasn't square. We measured it wrong, so the roof doesn't quite fit properly and that leaks. So we're going to have to, you know, figure that out. So these kind of like not always knowing exactly what you're doing can then lead to further stresses. When it pours with rain, water runs down the walls, which is fun. And then I think another sort of falls under knowledge gap is very specific to having moved to another country. We're obviously having to learn a language. That can be very challenging when you've got to do more serious things. We're learning a whole new tax system as self-employed people, and sometimes getting that wrong. The first year we submitted it at the wrong time because it's a different time to the UK, and then we ended up with a couple of fines, and then sometimes a payment is needed at a certain time that we weren't aware of, so you've not factored that into your budget. Yeah, knowledge gap is a big one that can make life feel more stressful, but we're learning so much, which is so rewarding. And I don't want to be like seen to be complaining, which is probably why we don't like share these things very often. I think everyone's life is stressful in its own ways, so I don't think it's often necessary to always talk about what's a challenge. But I did feel like I should cover some of these things. The other final like big stressor, but I imagine this is one for almost everyone, is finances. Again, learning what we need to spend on for our tax and our social security, which goes towards our pension. So I'm happy to pay it. It's just sometimes I get the calculations wrong. And also living here where it's very rural and there's not many business opportunities, which is why it's kind of losing its population, because a lot of young people are moving to the cities for jobs. It's not easy to just go and get a job. You have to be inventive in ways to make your own money. Samanya! So yeah, at first there's kind of making enough money and having to depend on yourself and be an entrepreneur here. Luckily, we were both self-employed before we moved, so we're kind of used to the fluctuations and the ups and downs of that, because I started, when we first moved here, I was full-time working as an illustrator, and then I actually lost one of my wholesale clients, which was a big part of my income with that, which is why we really started focusing on YouTube, which has been amazing. So thank you guys for watching our videos, because that's now become our main income source here. But yeah, you have to be inventive, you know, you have to figure that out. And not only that, there is the fact that we're not just having to make enough to live on. Luckily, we have no rent and no outgoing bills other than the Wi-Fi and our car insurance and fuel. But we're trying to build a house and build our off-grid systems, and it's actually really expensive to do those things. I'm quite surprised actually by how expensive just getting set up is, and thank goodness we have a YouTube channel, and that's allowed us to work with brands that have supplied us with those systems as part of our agreement with our brand sponsorships. It's not just making enough to live on, it's making enough to build this project so that we can be more comfortable. And when you don't have those systems, it takes a lot of time, so then you're time poor without them, and it's just an ongoing balance all the time. It's just a very ongoing balance. So that is my ramble about the ways in which this life is unfortunately not stress-free. It's actually been quite a stressful 4 years in a lot of ways, aside from what I've just said about all the things. There's also like things go wrong. We had a huge issue with our car last year, which was A, very expensive, and B, very time consuming, and not having a car sometimes whilst we were living here was difficult. And then there was also, when we very first moved here, when we found out that we didn't fully own the house and had to work out how to resolve that. You know, we're not exempt from the chaos of life just because we live here. So as much as we love to share the times when life isn't stressful here and how beautiful it is, and I think we do get quite a lot of stress-free moments when we can just enjoy being here. Yeah, I wanted to be open about the fact that it's, can be very difficult. That being said, it is all very worth it. Though when it's very stressful, I do question if it is, what on earth we're doing here. But yeah, the resolve I always come to is that it's so worth it. This is such an incredible life that we're getting to live. I love all the lessons we're picking up amidst those stressful moments, how much we're learning to rely on each other, because we're away from our family and initial community, something we're building here now. But when we first moved here, you're kind of on your own. I've probably rambled enough for now. Give you a break from my voice and just crack on with clearing this.
I know sometimes life can be tough, and you feel like you just had enough. When you're thinking everything is gone wrong, just remember that I'm here to cheer you on. Yeah, I wanna pick you up from the ground, let you know that I'm always around, 'cause I know we can make it, yes we can make it if we try. on trying. You got it. I believe in you. You got it. I know you got this. You got it. Just keep on trying. You got it. There's been a lot of bumps in the road. Oh yeah. Always carrying that oh so heavy load.
So another big stress is trying to garden with a cat that likes to sleep on your seedlings. You are a naughty boy. Come on. Some very squashed broccoli and pak choy in there. I've come to get his potatoes because they need planting. Excuse me, Joao. I would just quickly like to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, which is Hungry Minds, who sent us this really beautiful book, The Ultimate Guide to Rebuilding a Civilization. This beautiful encyclopedia showcases the most significant human inventions and discoveries throughout human history and is full of gorgeous handmade illustrations, from engineering drawings to medieval art, and covers 180 topics over 23 chapters. As I've been reading through the pages, I've felt it quite fitting for when we first moved here and built our life from scratch, and there's some really cool ideas that I'd love to try out. I particularly love the plants and food section, but it also covers things like medicine and power plants. Who knows how far we might go with our off-grid life. Maybe we can even build an off-grid X-ray machine. It doesn't just cover the practicalities of life though. There's also the deeper elements of being a human, from creativity and making art and music, as well as self-improvement, yoga and psychotherapy. The unique concept of the book made it a top project on Kickstarter, and with over 5,000 hours of work to bring it to life, involving over 50 professionals from artists, scientists, architects and designers, it inevitably became a bestseller. It's a really fascinating book that would make a beautiful gift, appealing to both children and adults, and if you'd like to purchase the book, then you'll find a link in our description below.
Is that to make sure you plant them in a row? Right, we are planting potatoes today. You're going classic in the ground method.
I am.
I'm going new method, buckets. And it's like a competition over the length of time that it takes for potatoes to grow as to who grows the best potato. And we'll have a reveal at the end.
In like 3 months' time.
Yeah, if we remember, remind us in the comments of like when the potatoes should be ready. Also let us know in the comments who you reckon's going to win. Traditional or bucket? I've got grass. I'm going to try and plant them in grass. We've got a bit of compost there. Right then, I'm just going to go 2 buckets. Are you just going to go 1 row?
No, 2.
Chris is going 2 rows. Is the idea that the bigger the potato to start with, the bigger the potato you'll get out of it?
I think it's maybe, but there's also, see, this has got so many different,
Yeah,
the less of those, the bigger
the potato.
potatoes will grow.
Okay.
So if you leave more of those, you'll get more but smaller ones.
Okay, so basically what I'm asking is how to grow jacket potatoes.
Yeah, so
Like 2 of them.
I think it's the
Maybe 3.
variety, so I don't know. But yeah, the ones that have less eyes.
Okay, well, should, in theory, grow bigger potatoes.
As far as I know.
Right, I'm going to put 3 plants in one. Pow, 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 pow. A little black furry potato. Aren't you? Aren't you? Okay, and then I'm going to do a thin thing of compost. Or is that cheating? Am I allowed to do that? Do you have a hurry?
Yeah, I want to do loads of different composts this year. It's going to be a year of compost experiments. So I'm going to get one of the black bins, although I've been very reluctant to because I don't want to add plastic. But I think that'll work better for hot composting off kitchen waste.
I wonder whether you could like turn one of these bags inside out because they're black on the inside.
That's a good idea. You know what we could do is fill it with like grass and leaf mould.
Yeah. And just like a shovel out of the food compost.
Yeah.
Right, job done. Beer time. Do you want a hand?
Do you know what you could do
What?
if you wanted to is go and rake up all the grass.
Yeah, it's like a
And
wheelbarrow
then I
full.
can put it, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Cool.
There's the rakes.
Will do. Might be a cork or two in there.
And then turn around.
Turn around.
Lovely stuff.
Ideal.
And then I was wondering whether to just chuck some wood chip down the middle. This grass smells lovely. Lovely, lovely. Perfetto. Hi.
Grass snake. In case you guys can't see it, it's there. The crack of the rock. Whoop. Oi. Not sure if he wants to get wet, you see. Because he might not be a water snake, and if he's not, that means he'll drown. Yeah.